here's some notes about my experience mentoring, well, that project that you just heard about over the last few months. I think this set of experiences will be most relevant to people mentoring similar projects. That is, software that we use to analyze or view data. But I'm hope that everyone here will find something in this presentation that they can sort of take home with them. Some of this overlaps a little bit with what Lynn said, I mean, just from a slightly different perspective. So apologies if anything is repeated, but on the other hand, if we're both saying it, maybe it's worth saying twice. So with that, I'll just go ahead and dive into it. So what's Outreachy? So Lynn actually already gave a great introduction, but I'll repeat it again. So like Outreachy is a paid remote internship program. Outreachy's goal is to support people from groups underrepresented in tech. We help newcomers to free software and open source make their first contributions. And as Lynn said, like Outreachy coordinates 3 months internships with a variety of open source communities. Mozilla is just one of them. Anyone who faces underrepresentation, systemic bias, or discrimination in the technology industry of their country is invited to apply. So I guess one point that's worth emphasizing here is that like Outreachy is not a Mozilla Corporation internship program. So Outreachy contributors are not considered employees of the Mozilla Corporation. Mostly this doesn't really make any practical difference. Work is still work and mentorship is still mentorship. But there's a few interesting implications. For example, the copyright to any work that an Outreachy intern produces, their work is theirs, it's not ours. And so a good way of thinking about this is that when you're mentoring Outreachy, you're really working with the Mozilla community, using the resources that you've been given as an employee of the Mozilla Corporation to make that happen. Okay, so why Outreachy, right? I guess first off, all the usual reasons you might want to mentor an intern, right? It's an opportunity to advance your projects. You can bring in fresh perspectives. You can gain new skills as a mentor. But I think there's a few other things that are kind of worth highlighting here that make this Outreachy a little different from a conventional internship. Like the first is that, Mozilla's normal recruitment channels for internships, like for example, university recruiting programs, they exclude like a large number of otherwise qualified applicants. A traditional internship program, it's normally restricted to people who are going to university in North America or Europe, right? And that just excludes a lot of people who would, from other parts of the world or, who aren't going to university or, all sorts of things. So I'm not saying that university programs are inherently bad, but, I think it's worth considering trying other approaches if we're genuinely committed to having a diverse workforce and a diverse group of people, in our community. And I think it's also an opportunity to approach our work in a new way, which is, working with the community. There's a couple of reasons why I find this highly compelling, and I think you should too. So first off, it forces us to improve our onboarding experience. If we explain and document things in a way that's understandable and approachable to newcomers, they'll also be more understandable to the rest of Mozilla, right? And given our org-wide goal of enabling productive use of data by non-experts, the value of that, I think, should hopefully be obvious. And then second, by working in the open, we can build trust with users in our community. With respect to data engineering, virtually all of our work is already in public in GitHub, which is great. But I think efforts like Outreachy really push us to go to the extra step and provide the public context, which makes that work meaningful, right? Like not just dumping our code, and leaving out the context. Okay, so hopefully I've convinced you Outreachy is great. How does it work? I'm going to try to break down the program with some thoughts based on my experience at each point in the cycle, but the basics are pretty simple. First, you think about a project idea, then you propose it, you get it accepted. Then you work with potential interns during the application period. Of those who applied, select one to do the internship, and then finally mentor. So let's talk about this step by step. So the first part is the project idea. So this should be a project that should be, somebody's going to work on for 3 months. So there's a few subtleties to sort of think through here. So, first off, we don't want projects that have a huge upfront learning curve. So for example, with respect to our work, in data engineering, We don't want something that requires a detailed understanding of our entire data pipeline end to end from the get-go, right? That's going to be a frustrating experience for both the mentor and any potential interns during the application period, which I'll talk about in a second. The Glean Dictionary was sort of in a state where motivated applicants could get a local copy of the software running locally, and they could submit a good first patch within a few hours. And at least an outline, like the purpose of the Glean Dictionary, is fairly obvious, right? There's other prior art elsewhere in the industry that we could point to. Second, we want projects that can be worked on in the open, and the benefits should not be, at least in theory, they should not be restricted to one company. So the Glean Dictionary, just like Glean itself, has the ambition of being useful to people besides Mozilla, even if we're not completely there yet. We're aspiring to create a platform that can be used by anyone for responsible data collection and governance. Finally, while it's not a good idea to propose a mission critical project for Outreachy, like don't propose something that needed to be done yesterday. You do want to propose a project that's, well, first of all, it's interesting to work on. Two, it should be valuable enough to Mozilla to justify you devoting your own time and that of your peers to mentoring it. And it should be a valuable learning and development experience for the intern. In real terms, like the Outreachy stipend, it's not like a huge amount of money. It's really the experience. I think that has the potential to be really valuable. So, make it worth somebody's time and attention. Both to apply and to actually do the internship if they get selected. Okay, so you have an idea. The next step is to propose it and get it accepted. So this needs manager approval for obvious reasons. I'd highly recommend writing a proposal for your project and circulating it amongst your peers. We've talked a lot about proposal culture in data engineering and data in general over the last few months. But if you need a refresher on that, I'd refer to Mark Reed's talk from a few months ago. I'd also, this is probably also the time to start thinking about finding a co-mentor. A co-mentor can lighten your load, and it can help your peers develop their mentorship skills as well. Anthony Miyaguchi, really helped me out both during the application stage and during the internship itself. So yeah, thanks Anthony for stepping up. Finally, I'd also recommend contacting the Outreachy coordinators early about your projects. This isn't really totally traditional for Mozilla. It's still a little unfamiliar. So I think bringing up your ideas and you're talking it through with Outreachy coordinators like Dustin Mitchell, who I think is on this call, can really be helpful. And it's better not to leave that to the last minute, because it's leaving things to the last minute just causes unnecessary stress, right? Okay, so you've got a proposal, it's been accepted, what's next? Okay, so what's next is what's called the application period. So this is where potential applicants or potential interns for your projects get to try their hand at contributing to it. And you gather, as a mentor, gather information on who would benefit most from that experience. This is a few weeks long and it can get pretty intense at times. A popular project will get a large number of interested people. So you'll need a long list of tasks for people to work on. So typically for each applicant for the Glean Dictionary, I ask them to do one good first bug, a simple change to the Glean Dictionary, where I basically spell out what they need to do. And then after they solve that, I would kind of get them to work on, one or two more issues of kind of higher complexity, where the solution to the problem isn't necessarily completely obvious and they have to do a bit more of thinking and research on themselves, kind of giving a bit of a preview of what it would be like to actually be working on the internship itself. After that, I would try to encourage them to work on the application, which is basically an outline of how they would expect to spend, 3 months, getting this project finished. So I think I consider this step to actually be important as any other part of Outreachy. Although only one intern will be selected, lots of people will apply. And it's a great opportunity for everyone involved. In the case of the Glean Dictionary, the contributions from everyone who applied really advanced the goals of the project. The difference between before the start of the application period and the end is just night and day. And I think you need to, if people are doing work for you, you need to provide something of return. It should be a genuine value of exchange, right? So I tried to make sure that everyone who showed up and put effort in, gained some experience, with Git or code review or, things like that they could take with them elsewhere. So yeah, I think it's worth talking about this a little bit more. So this is, as I said, it's probably the most demanding part of Outreachy. You'll be interacting with many people and there's varying skill levels and backgrounds involved, and it can be a lot of work. So it's worth, I think, worth going through a few things that can help you avoid sort of burnout at this stage. So I guess first off, wherever possible with the Glean Dictionary, I encourage people to ask broadly interesting questions on the public Glean Dictionary channel on Matrix, instead of just answering stuff over DMs. This allows other people to jump in and help, distributing the question answering load a bit. Like, the Glean team was on there. A lot of my peers on the data platform team were there. It really helped. And then sometimes you would even see fellow applicants help each other, which was just so awesome to see. I'd recommend creating a separate forum instead of piggybacking on one, because it's the volume of messages is really high, and if there's like a forum that's being used for other work, it's better to separate out the Outreachy stuff. I would also recommend creating like a frequently asked questions list for common questions. I just created a lightweight GitHub gist and put it in the channel topic. Answering the same questions over and over kind of gets old really quickly. I also created a simple first task, like before even assigning somebody a good first bug, I created a simple first task that was the same for all applicants. And then I had them direct message me their solution. It was basically like, check out the repository, make a small cosmetic change to this this page, and then show me what you did. This sort of lets you filter out people. Well, I guess basically, I how to say this politely. I mean, some people just don't quite have the skills, and you kind of want them to sort of self-select out, right, without it being an embarrassing experience, either for you or for them. So I think having this sort of gating opportunity lets you do that pretty effectively, and it reduces the load. And then, also, getting help from your peers in this stage can be really helpful in the review stage as well. When you're reviewing a lot of contributions, it's really helpful to get other people who have experience in different areas to help out. Like, during the application period, we actually made some changes to the Glean SDK and Probe Scraper, and I sort of, with their permission, of course, I tagged experts in those areas to help out, and that was really helpful. And then finally, I think it's worth emphasizing that the application period is not a race to fix the most bugs or anything like that. It's better for everyone's mental health if applicants fix a few bugs and issues in a thoughtful way, then proceed on to making their application. Like, you don't want people to get the impression that they have to do this mountain of work to impress you or anything like that, because that's just not fair. People have different amounts of spare time to devote to something like this, and you want to create a level playing field as much as possible. I thought this was obvious, but it really wasn't. And so were I to do Outreachy again, I would really try to emphasize that part a bit more. Okay, so after the application period comes selection. This is honestly the hardest part. There are many people who applied to work on the Glean Dictionary who I think would have succeeded at the internship. We could only select one. I tried as hard as I could to make it clear to those who weren't selected that they were qualified and their work really did matter and it was appreciated. And I tried to give them whatever advice I could on how to succeed at similar opportunities in the future. And then ultimately we selected Lynn, whose presentation you just heard. So hopefully that experience sort of speaks for itself. So just finally, just to wrap up, I won't go into too much detail because you just heard about from Lynn herself what her experience was like, but I guess just from the other side, there's just a few notes about, mentoring. So first off, I would recommend, make sure that you're checking in regularly, both in one-on-ones and in group meetings. Anthony and I sort of traded off. He'd do 1 week, I would do the other, and so on. And then I'll also kind of primarily motivated by the internship, I created a fortnightly meeting for the Glean Dictionary, which I think was valuable not just for Lynn, but for the extended community of people who was interested in the project. Our data platform is pretty complex and there's a lot of context sharing that, we really need to bring a newcomer up to speed. And then also, I think Lynn mentioned this, but I'd recommend, trying to introducing the Outreachy intern to people, either within the data organization or across the company, via ad hoc one-on-ones. And like thanks to everybody who agreed to do that. I think it was really valuable to Lynn, and I think hopefully it was a good experience for everyone who did it as well. I don't think Outreachy actually recommends this, but I would definitely recommend it. Or I mean, Outreachy doesn't explicitly recommend it. It doesn't discourage it, I should say. Anyway, finally, although the main focus of Outreachy is software development, I tried to nudge Lynn towards doing some small presentations, such as the one that you just saw. So I think one important avenue for professional growth is talking about your work in various ways. So presentations are one of them. Another aspect, of course, is blogging, which Outreachy explicitly asks interns to do. I think looking back, I probably could have done a little bit of a better job, like nudging Lynn to work on that stuff. I think it was technically my responsibility, and I think she kind of just did it herself without my intervention, which is great. But like I probably could have been a bit more proactive about that. So that's, I guess, one other thing I would do slightly differently were I to do it again. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful to you. So yeah, finally, thanks everyone. As I sort of tried to make clear, I don't think this internship could have happened without help from a lot of people. Foremost Anthony, who was my co-mentor, but like also my extended team who stepped up in all sorts of great ways. So thank you all again. And then also, like, feel free to talk to me if you're interested in proposing doing an Outreachy internship in a subsequent round. I think it's too late for the one that's just about to happen, but I think we'll do more. Yeah, I mean, I think doing one with data has some interesting issues. So like, feel free to talk to me if you want to brainstorm ideas or you have questions or whatever. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.